So, if you're Filipino and living in Australia right now, this might hit home a little bit for you. You're earning good money in Australia, but everything here is super expensive. Obviously, cost of living at the moment make it harder to save money. Fuel prices isn't making it easier to go to work. It just means property in Australia feels almost impossible to achieve. $500,000 to $700,000 just for a basic unit. What's that? 1 to 2 bedroom, 1 bathroom, no car sometimes. That's a basic unit. And you might be thinking, should I be investing somewhere else? This presentation is basically about what it's like to be buying a condo in the Philippines at the moment, 2026, the good and the bad. And this is a very honest and realistic data-driven analysis for investors, but not only just for investors as well. So sit back, take a listen. I think it'll be pretty important because I see a lot of people online at the moment. They're persuading you to buy a condo in the Philippines. It's easy passive income. The Airbnb will pay for it. Honestly, it's not that simple. In this video, I'll break it down for you, the good and the bad, and how that actually makes sense into the 2026. Firstly, market landscape here. The 2026 GDP growth forecast is looking around 6% growth. That's great. Inflation is low, which is also good, but interest rates are still relatively high. They're pretty high. Obviously, that's going to be affecting mortgages, payment terms, anything to do with a loan. Yeah, loan structure. Now, does this actually matter to you living in Australia? Oh, Clayton, I'm in Australia. How does the interest rate actually affect me? Well, even if you're earning Australian dollar, the financing is all done in the Philippines, so it's easily still affected by these rates. So country might be great, economy forecasted looking great, but doesn't necessarily mean easy money for you. This is going to be leading into an even bigger issue that most of you have probably already heard through other articles and videos, but this is the most important thing you need to understand right now, the vacancy rate. Massive elephant in the room. There are a lot of empty condos in the Philippines right now, especially in the Bay Area. So I want you to think about this, and this might sound like common sense, but if you're working in Australia, relying on a rental income and your unit sits empty for 2 to 3 months, that's coming out of your pocket. That money for your unit, that's coming out of your pocket. And this is where a lot of overseas Filipino workers, so Filipino investors, this is where they get caught, to be honest. And because they're sold on the dream of a passive income, they saw an ad online, they thought, oh, this is great, I can afford these payment terms. Oh, why is no one renting out my unit? Why is my Airbnb not showing any success? No one is talking about the vacancy rates at the moment. So here's where things start to get interesting. This is good and the bad. Prices are actually going down, not up. I know I was talking about the GDP growth before. I'll get into that a little bit, but we're seeing a drop about 2%, but adjusted for inflation, property values are down realistically 4%. So back to that GDP growth. Like I said, it was forecasted for that 6%. GDP growth is about the whole economy. Property prices are about the supply and demand in that specific market. So country might look great. Philippines, yep, it's doing so well, but obviously property prices are being corrected at the moment or adjusted. So if you've been waiting or sitting on the sidelines, this is the good of the bad I was telling you about. This market shift is where you want to be paying attention to. So in Australia, property prices ridiculously high, no matter where you're looking. This is why I've started to look around a bit, and in the Philippines there is a bit of a reset happening, and this is where the smart buying starts to happen. So not buying when everything is booming. Obviously the biggest misconception, the rental yield trap. You might see numbers like 5 to 6%, and you'll often see that 5 to 6% rental yield, passive income, Airbnb opportunity, but in reality you're actually closer to that 3 to 4% mark. People seem to forget the condo fees, the repairs, the taxes, the agent fees, the vacancy. This is all stuff even when it's empty, obviously. So imagine this, you're working full time in Australia, but still sending money back to cover your investment. Honestly, this is not a passive income. This is a terrible commitment. This doesn't mean condos are bad. Please don't think this is a terrible investment. It's just you need to do your due diligence. You need to realize it really does mean location matters, like a lot. Let's just break it down. BGC, strong tenant rental demand. Makati, long-term stability. Infrastructure-led growth areas is where you want to be looking at. These are just 3 examples. I do break it down a little bit more in the playbook, and this is where I want you to think a little bit differently, because most people only want to buy when the market's booming. And I understand this is the FOMO, fear of missing out. When there's people buying property, you want to be part of the bandwagon. But in reality, the opportunity is usually when things start to slow down. You now have the leverage. You can negotiate for better payment terms, less competition. No one's buying, or smart investors are buying. Sorry, let me correct myself. Smart investors are buying in ideal locations. because they know they're earning Australian dollar, which means you have a stronger position than most local buyers. So in reality, you're not just buying property, you're buying leverage. So after all that, everything that I've just said, you might be thinking, wow, Clayton, you're really not selling the dream, or you're really not selling the opportunity to be investing in the Philippines. And I get that. I'm not, like I said at the beginning of this presentation, this is the real honest truth, data-driven property analysis. And honestly, it really isn't for everyone. Some people just don't do it. But for the right person, this is where the opportunity actually starts. Because the reality is most people only buy when the market is hot. When prices are high, competition is high. The deals are limited. Everyone's getting squeezed. But the people who are actually building wealth, they buy when things feel uncertain. And if you're working in Australia, earning Australian dollar, you're already in a stronger position. So while others are hesitating, you do have a massive advantage here. So let me give you a more realistic example of how this actually plays out. So say someone actually secures a unit around 4 to 5 million pesos. They structure it with a low or flexible down payment, lock in during these current prices or market terms while the prices of the market has slowed down a little bit. Fast forward that 2 to 3 year mark, once the infrastructure is completed, demand is increased, we've chosen the right location, looking at public transport, vacancy rate in that particular area or that particular building. We're looking at tier 1 developers. You've probably heard of it, Ayala, SMDC, massive developers. That same unit could be doing around to 3,500 per night on Airbnb. That's roughly 70 to 120,000 pesos per month. Now, obviously, not every single property is going to be like this. Like I said, going through the checklist, it really depends on location, management, setup. But there are people doing this right now. This is where you guys need to be thinking differently. Pretty much there's 3 different paths to go from here. Option 1, you buy and hold. This is the long-term strategy. You ride and just ride the growth essentially. Option 2, you're setting it up for Airbnb and aiming for high cash flow. This is also ideal. Then long-term rentals, you're looking at that short-term rental, and tourism in the Philippines is just only growing. Like all you need to do is just, phone, you can see people are just coming in and out through the Philippines. So like I said, option 2 is definitely ideal. Option 3, you're securing a unit early during this slow market, as well as get off the plan and benefit from that capital growth as the infrastructure finishes. So that's where most people actually tend to look towards. Option 3, securing that unit now, and then once that project is finished, they'll just see that growth as at the end. There is no one perfect strategy, but there is definitely a smart way to approach it. If you're serious about this and you want to understand how it works a bit more in depth, put together a playbook. It breaks down how to find the right properties, what to look for, how to find locations, and how people are actually structuring these deals. There's no pressure or commitment on this. This is just information. If you're interested, more than happy to help. Just something to help you make a better decision. So take a look at that. If you are interested, let me know and I could walk it through with you and help you understand a lot better.